As the afternoon sun dipped low over the parking lot, casting long orange reflections across the asphalt, the drive-through line at the small roadside diner moved slowly. Inside, the familiar hum of sizzling grills and clinking trays filled the air. Emily adjusted her apron and took a steady breath as she lifted the paper bag from the counter, checking the receipt one last time. Cheeseburger, fries, iced tea. Order number 47.
Ever wondered where you really come from? Not the stories, but the science. On this channel, we decode real DNA, uncover lost ancestries, and bring ancient genomes to life through cinematic storytelling. If that excites you, subscribe for weekly insights. Like the video to support science-based history. And drop a comment. Your questions help guide what we explore next.
She stepped toward the window, muscles moving on autopilot after another long shift, unaware that this simple routine was about to change everything she thought she knew about her life. When she slid the window open and leaned forward, her practiced smile froze halfway across her face. The man in the driver's seat looked older than she remembered, his hair streaked with gray and his face worn by years of exhaustion. But there was no mistaking those eyes. She had seen them every time she looked in the mirror growing up. Her fingers tightened around the bag. For a split second, neither of them spoke. The sounds of the diner seemed to fade, replaced by the pounding of Emily's heart in her ears. "Here's your order," she finally managed, her voice barely above a whisper as she extended the bag. The man looked at her, really looked at her, as if afraid she might vanish if he blinked. His hands trembled slightly as he took the food. "Emily," he said quietly. The sound of her name coming from his mouth sent a shock through her body. She swallowed hard. Would you like any ketchup or sauce?" It was the safest thing she could think to say. The script, the routine, anything to keep from unraveling right there at the window. He hesitated, his jaw tightening, then shook his head slowly. "No, I'm fine." Emily nodded quickly, already reaching to close the window when he spoke again. "I didn't know you worked here," he said. Her chest felt tight. "Yeah, I do." Another pause, heavy, uncomfortable. "I've been looking for you," he added. The words hit her like a physical blow. Her vision blurred instantly as tears filled her eyes. Her mind raced back to everything she'd been told growing up. That he didn't care, that he walked away, that he never wanted to see her again. She felt anger rise, hot and sudden. Before she could stop herself, she grabbed a handful of ketchup packets from the counter and shoved them into the bag with more force than necessary. "I don't need anything else," she said sharply, slamming the window shut before he could respond. Her hands were shaking as she turned away, her chest heaving. She made it only a few steps before the tears spilled over. Emily bolted down the narrow hallway and locked herself inside the restroom, collapsing onto the closed toilet seat as sobs racked her body. Years of confusion, resentment, and unanswered questions crashed down on her all at once. Moments later, there was a gentle knock on the door. "Emily?" Her coworker Sarah called softly. "Are you okay?" Emily wiped her face with the back of her hand, trying and failing to steady her breathing. "It's nothing," she lied. Sarah didn't buy it. She stepped inside after Emily unlocked the door, her brow furrowing when she saw Emily's red, swollen eyes. "What happened?" she asked carefully. "That guy said something to you, didn't he?" Emily hesitated, staring down at the tiled floor. Saying it out loud made it real. "That was my dad," she whispered finally. Sarah's eyes widened. "Your dad?" "I haven't seen him since I was 6, and he just told me he's been looking for me." She laughed weakly through her tears. "My mom always said he disappeared, that he didn't want us, that he never tried." Sarah sat beside her, stunned. "Do you believe him?" Emily shook her head slowly. "I don't know, but the way he looked at me, it didn't feel like a lie." She stood abruptly, wiping her face again. "I need to go home. I need answers." Sarah squeezed her hand. "Go, I'll cover for you." Emily didn't bother changing out of her uniform. She grabbed her bag and walked straight out the back door, her thoughts spinning as she drove home. When she arrived, the house looked the same as it always had. Quiet, familiar, safe. But something inside her felt irreversibly shaken. Her mother was sitting on the couch watching television when Emily walked in. She took one look at her daughter's face and muted the screen. "Emily, what happened?" she asked, standing up. "Are you okay?" Emily swallowed, her heart hammering. "Mom, we need to talk." Her mother's expression softened with concern. "Of course, sweetheart. What's wrong?" "It's about Dad," Emily said. The warmth drained instantly from her mother's face. A heavy silence filled the room, stretching longer than Emily could bear. "I saw him today," Emily continued, her voice steady despite the storm inside her. "He came through the drive-thru." Her mother's lips pressed into a thin line. "I don't want to hear about him." "I do," Emily said firmly, "because he told me something that doesn't match what you've always said." Her mother turned away, folding her arms tightly across her chest. "He said he's been trying to find me for years. He said you wouldn't let him." Her mother scoffed bitterly. "That's ridiculous. He's lying." "Is he?" Emily asked softly. "Because I don't remember him leaving. I only remember you telling me he did." Her mother's voice rose. "I protected you. He abandoned us." "Then why does it feel like there's more you're not telling me?" Emily asked, tears threatening again. Her mother shook her head, refusing to meet her eyes. "I've told you everything you need to know." Emily stared at her, her chest aching with disappointment. "I need the truth," she said quietly, "all of it." But her mother said nothing. That night, Emily lay awake in her childhood bedroom, staring at the ceiling. The familiar glow-in-the-dark stars still clung faintly above her, relics of a time when the world felt simpler. Unable to sleep, she got up and began digging through old boxes in the closet. Photo albums, papers, things untouched for years. That's when she found the first crack in the story she'd always believed. Emily sat cross-legged on the floor, surrounded by open boxes and scattered memories. The house was silent, except for the faint ticking of the hallway clock, each second echoing louder in her chest. She flipped through an old photo album, its leather cover cracked with age. Most of the pages were familiar, birthdays, school photos, holiday snapshots. But then she reached a section she hadn't seen before. There he was, her father. Not the vague, half-remembered figure from her earliest childhood, but a clear image of him holding her in his arms, both of them smiling. She traced her finger along the edge of the photo, her breath catching when she noticed the date scribbled on the back. It was from when she was 8. Her mother had always told her he left when she was 6. Her stomach tightened. Emily flipped through more pages, her hands moving faster now. There were pictures of family outings, of her father standing beside her at a school fair, of him crouching down helping her ride a bike, all dated years later than she had been led to believe. Her mind raced, trying to make sense of it. Digging deeper into the box, she found a stack of envelopes tied together with a faded ribbon. The handwriting on the front was unfamiliar, but careful, deliberate. Her hands shook as she opened the first letter. It was addressed to her. The words inside were filled with warmth, regret, and longing. He wrote about missing her, about wondering how tall she'd grown, about hoping one day she'd read his letters and understand that he never stopped loving her. Emily's vision blurred as tears splashed onto the paper. Letter after letter told the same story: missed birthdays, unreturned calls, plans that never came to pass. Each one ended with a promise: "I'll keep trying." Her chest ached as the realization settled in. If these letters are real, then someone made sure she never saw them. The next morning, Emily drove across town to her Aunt Linda's house. Linda was her mother's older sister, someone who had always been kind, but oddly distant whenever the topic of her father came up. Linda opened the door with a surprised smile.
"Emily, what are you doing here so early?" "I need to ask you something," Emily said, skipping pleasantries, "and I need you to be honest with me." Linda's smile faded. She stepped aside to let Emily in.
They sat at the kitchen table, the smell of coffee lingering in the air. Emily pulled one of the letters from her bag and slid it across the table. "Did my dad try to stay in my life?" Emily asked. Linda stared at the letter for a long moment before letting out a slow breath. "I was hoping you wouldn't have to find out like this." "So it's true," Emily whispered. "He wasn't perfect," Linda said carefully, "but he did try, more than once." Emily clenched her jaw. "Then why did everyone act like he didn't exist?" Linda looked away. "Your mother was hurt, angry. She felt betrayed, and she didn't want him around anymore. So she erased him," Emily said bitterly. Linda reached across the table and squeezed her hand. "She thought she was protecting you." Emily pulled her hand back gently. She was protecting herself. Later that day, Emily visited a family friend who had known both her parents years ago. At first, they were hesitant to speak, glancing nervously toward the door as if her mother might appear at any moment. "It wasn't simple," they finally admitted. "There were mistakes on both sides, but your father never stopped asking about you." The weight of the truth pressed down on Emily, heavy and suffocating. By evening, there was no room left for doubt. She needed to hear his side directly. Finding him wasn't easy, but one of the letters mentioned a small auto repair shop he'd once dreamed of opening. A quick search led her to a modest garage on the edge of town. Emily sat in her car across the street for nearly 20 minutes, her heart pounding as she watched him work through the open bay doors. He moved slower than she remembered from the photos, his shoulders slightly hunched, but it was undeniably him. Finally, she stepped out of the car. He looked up when he heard the bell over the door ring, his expression shifting from confusion to shock. "Emily?" he said, his voice barely steady. "I read your letters," she said. He swallowed hard, his eyes filling instantly. "I never thought you'd see them." They sat across from each other in the small office, years of silence stretching between them. When he finally spoke, his voice cracked. "I never stopped loving you," he said. "But every time I tried to reach you, the door was closed." Emily listened as he told his story, about the arguments, the misunderstandings, the mistakes he regretted every day. He showed her copies of court documents, returned mail, unanswered messages. Each piece of evidence chipped away at the image she'd carried of him her entire life. When Emily left the garage, the sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. Her heart felt heavier than ever, but clearer too. There was only one conversation left to have. That night, she stood once more in the living room, facing her mother. "I know the truth, and I need you to stop lying." Her shoulders slumped. Tears spilled down her face as years of guilt finally broke through. "I was wrong. I was hurt, and I made choices I can't take back." Emily listened in silence as her mother confessed everything. The lies, the manipulation, the fear of losing her daughter. The room felt smaller with every word. Emily didn't scream, she didn't yell, she simply cried. Not just for the years she lost, but for the broken people who had shaped her life. When the confession ended, Emily stood up, wiping her face. "I don't know if I can forgive you yet, but I'm not cutting him out of my life anymore." Her mother nodded through tears. "I understand." In the weeks that followed, Emily and her father began again, slowly, carefully, awkwardly. They talked for hours, shared meals, filled the empty spaces with new memories. The past could never be erased, but for the first time, Emily felt like she was finally living with the truth, and that was enough to let her begin healing.